Hello everybody, welcome back to That Fiction Life. Shadow and Bone has finally released on Netflix, and what you may not know is that it's based on a huge book series by Leigh Bardugo called the Grishaverse. And in today's video I'm going to take you through the reading order, as it's a little bit complicated. I'm not going to be giving you my thoughts on the series in this video because that's going to be a whole separate discussion, so make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss that. The Netflix series is called Shadow and Bone, and that's only the first trilogy, which is the starting point for this whole entire universe. So you start with Shadow and Bone, which follows the same plot as the Netflix series. So you have Alina, who discovers that she has this special ability. She didn't know that she was Grisha growing up, and the book follows the same kind of recipe as the Netflix show. Characters like the Darkling and Mal and Zoya, David, they all appear. This trilogy is the starting point. It's very focused on the magic and the world building of Ravka, and primarily the whole existence of the Grisha and how the Darkling / General Kirigan manage this whole enterprise. So that's the core first story. However, there is also a duology called Six of Crows that's in the Netflix series. But it's not what you think, because while the characters appear in the first season, the story that they follow is not one from the books. What they have done, I think, is so clever, is that they've given us a prequel to this series, because the Six of Crows plotline, which is book 1 in the duology, followed by Crooked Kingdom, it takes place 2 years after the events of Ruin and Rising, which is the final book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. There's a big debate within the fandom about which of these two you should start with. I personally think there's a reason why Shadow and Bone was the first chronologically. It introduces you to the different systems of the Grisha, the different power plays within this world, because Six of Crows, I feel as though it has a really abrupt start and you kind of have to have that background. And of course you will be spoiled on the events of the trilogy if you start with this book. But as with any reading order, it is completely up to you which book you prefer, as long as you don't mind getting a little bit spoiled. Now, the Six of Crows plot in the Netflix series is very interlinked with Shadow and Bone. In the book universe, they're completely separate events. They go on a completely different heist within this book, and you meet Nina and Matthias in this series, which is why they're important. I know a lot of people who haven't read the books keep thinking, who are those two? Why are they even in the series? What is the point of them? Well, you find out in Six of Crows, they're very integral to the plot. You will have seen a little bit of an Easter egg in the final episode as to how these events could potentially interlink. Now, when you're choosing which series to start with, of course, if you look past any spoilers that could come up, it's that Six of Crows is very character driven. It's about the character dynamics more so than Shadow and Bone was, because that one is focused more on the magic and the character development of Alina. Six of Crows is kind of a found family story. It's very different to Shadow and Bone. And while the Shadow and Bone trilogy primarily takes place in Ravka, Six of Crows, we head to Ketterdam, which we have already seen in the Netflix series. Now, the final series is also a duology, and it is called King of Scars, and it's followed by Rule of Wolves. Now, this series, you absolutely have to read one of the other two first before moving on, as you will be completely lost, because the main protagonists of this book are plucked from Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows, and they are Nikolai and Nina. So we know who Nina is. We're familiar with her work. She's a badass. We all love her. But Nikolai will be someone new to you if you haven't read the books, because he is someone that comes into Siege and Storm, which is book 2 in the Shadow and Bone series. Now, this one is very focused on the politics in Ravka and the dark magic and characters that we were not able to spend time with in the pre-ascending series because they were not the main characters. Now, there are also 2 other books that are sort of novella bind-ups, and the first is The Language of Thorns, which is an illustrated book full of short stories set within this universe. This is quite a good starting point for this series. Now, the second novella book is The Lives of Saints. This is something that we actually saw in person in the Netflix series. It's in the library. this is actually a real book that you can read in real life. And it's made up of stories about the saints, just like in the Netflix show. However, it's best to read some of the other books before reading this one because it will make more sense to you. However, if you've already watched the Netflix series, you're already familiar with a lot of this. Now, if you've been looking up who Leigh Bardugo is and trying to find out all about her books after watching the series, you may have come across something called Ninth House. Now, this book has nothing to do with the Grishaverse. It's a completely separate series. It's going to be a duology, and it's also an adult series. So whereas Shadow and Bone is young adult, anyone can read it, Ninth House is very dark, it's very graphic, so just be wary of that. But it does follow secret societies at Yale University with a magic element. I hope this order has helped. I've also created a guide to reading the Shadowhunter Chronicles if that's something you're interested in, so I'm going to link that down below. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!